Welcome back to Easily Explained, where today we will be talking about car, gar, and zar verbs in the preterite tense. So let's get started. So in the preterite tense, these specific words, when we talk about just regular AR verbs in the preterite tense, we have a set conjugation chart, but the specific vowel before AR verbs, C, G, and Z, make it a little bit different when conjugating. Now, these irregular verbs are some of the more organized irregular verbs, like there's a set way to do them, a way to conjugate them, rather than when we get into later the more irregular verbs, which you have to memorize. And especially because the only form that car, gar, zar verbs change in is the yo form in the preterite tense. So it's not as hard to memorize. First, let's go over some examples of car, gar, zar verbs. Let's start with some examples of CAR verbs. Buscar means to look. Practicar means to practice. Tocar is to play. Secar is to dry. Explicar is to explain. And sacar is to withdraw. Now let's look at some GAR verbs. Jugar is to play. And notice tocar and jugar have the same English definition, but they are different. Tocar is usually used for an instrument, like tocar la guitarra means to play the guitar, while jugar is usually used for sports. Pagar is to pay. Apagar is to turn off. So if you want to say to turn off the light, it's apagar la luz. And llegar is to arrive. Now for some ZAR verbs. Almorzar means to have lunch or to eat lunch. Empezar and comenzar mean the same thing, to start or to begin, and they're usually used interchangeably, but depending on the region, one is more common than the other. And gozar means to enjoy. So as you can see, there's a lot of car, gar, zar verbs, but the good thing is that you don't need to memorize them, like, oh, these are the irregular verbs in the preterite tense in the yo form, because you can just see all of these are car, gar, and zar. So if you ever see this, you can tell from the word itself, and since there is a specific rule, you can just apply that rule to these verbs in the preterite tense in the yo form. So what is that rule? Let's go over the 3 rules for each separate irregular verb. We're going to start with the CAR verbs. When we conjugated regular AR verbs, we conjugated it by first getting rid of the AR portion and then by adding the correct ending. Now what we're going to do is just take out the entire car portion and then just add this ending that stays the same since it's only in the yo form, so this is the only ending where you have to do this. For car verbs, the ending is QUE with an accent on the E. So if we were to look at an example, buscar, and I want to say buscar in the yo form in the preterite tense. So I want to say I looked. I'm going to get rid of the entire CAR portion and add in my QUE ending. Busqué. But afterwards, in the rest of my conjugation chart, it's still going to be the same. So I'm still going to say buscaste, busco, buscamos, buscáis, and buscaron. So the rest of my conjugation chart is not going to be affected by this rule. Only the yo form is affected in preterite. Cargars are irregular verbs, so that's why it's not as hard to use. Now let's look at the rule for gar verbs. This becomes GUE. Ge. So if we had an example, pagar, yo, pa, get rid of the GAR and add in the GUE ending. Pague. And then the rest of it is still going to be the same. Pagaste, pago with an accent. Pagamos. Pagasteis and pagaron. And the last rule is for Zar verbs, CAR verbs. This just becomes CE with an accent. So let's look at an example again of empezar. Get rid of the entire ZAR portion. Just add our ending. And then the rest of them are going to be the exact same as regular. Empezaste, empezó, empezamos, empezasteis, and empezaron. And for practice, conjugate the cargar zar verbs correctly in the 4 exercises below. Pause the video now and start the practice. Alright, let's go over it. Number 1, we're conjugating gozar, which means to enjoy. It's a zar verb in the yo form. So if you remember, for zar verbs, the rule is CE. So we're going to get rid of the zar part and just add in the CE. Yo gocé mi viaje means I enjoyed my trip. Number 2, yo blank pagar ayer. This is a God verb, so we're going to get rid of the God part, and our rule is to add GUE accent. Yo pagué ayer means I paid yesterday. Tu blank buscar para la cartera. Now, it's true that this is a CAR verb, but if you'll notice, we're actually not conjugating it for yo, we're conjugating it for tu. Therefore, the rule doesn't apply. We're conjugating it normally. So that was a little bit of a trick one. You just conjugate it like normal. So, buscaste. Next, yo, okay, that means we have to apply the rule because it is in yo form. We're conjugating tocar, which is a CAR word, el piano, and el año pasado. Get rid of the CAR part, and our rule is QUE. Yo toqué el piano en el año pasado means I played the piano last year. Congratulations, you are now an expert at car, gar, and zar verbs in the preterite tense. We hope this video really helped, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye!